Welcome to Washington State Legends of Soccer and our series, Conversations with a Legend. I'm Frank MacDonald, and in the past, Washington Legends has been collecting on-site, on-camera stories from our soccer community's legendary newsmakers. Our conversation series is done remotely, and we're always taking suggestions for interview candidates via our website's contact portal at wasoccerlegends.org. Today, our guest is Peter Fewing. Pete, of course, is the head coach of Seattle University's men's soccer program. He's a Puget Sound native who played at the University of Washington and FC Seattle. He and his wife, Patty, operate Pete Fewing soccer camps, and Pete's been a member of the Sounders FC broadcast team since 2009. Welcome, Pete.
Thank you, Frank. It's great to be with you.
All right. Well, we've got about 11 questions or so, maybe 13. We've got room for subs here. So we'll start right away. We want to ground ourselves in where you come from. You grew up here in Puget Sound, and at the club level as a kid. Tell us about your parents and your family, your neighborhood, and what forces pulled you into the game, those people that might have helped you along the way early on.
Yeah, thank you. It's a fun place to start. So my parents came to the U.S. from England. I tell the story a lot these days because after World War II, my dad's house hit by a bomb when he was 15. He was buried for about four or 5 hours. They pulled him out. He was paralyzed, couldn't walk for 6 months. He had paralysis. And then my mom, I saw a picture. It's been 75 years since the VE parade. My mom marched in the VE parade as she served in the military in the Women's Auxiliary Commission, I believe it was called. So they had 4 children in England, but not a lot of opportunity for work. So my dad and mom got on a ship. It was in such poor condition that it ended up being scrapped for metal three sailings after they got to the U.S. So came to New York, went to Toronto, worked for a company called VA Avro was a plane manufacturer, but that went out of business. They had another child, my sister Caroline, and then my dad basically got a tryout with Boeing in California, left my mom with 5 kids, $80 cash in the middle of winter in Toronto. And he was a rugby player. So, I have pictures of him with a pint in his hand and a cigarette. And I can just imagine being in California in sunny weather, calling back to mom. There he is in the upper right-hand corner. He retired at about 62, but I saw him in a tie until he passed in 75, when he was 75 years old. So the reason he got that job, that's 1962, coaching CYO soccer for St. Francis. The priest on the left was Irish and said, "Hey, you got an accent. You're going to be our coach." So I still have a whistle. I have this picture at home. I have this picture in my office as well. So I'm kind of living their dream, to be honest. We were Sounders season ticket holders. That, I think, is either the first or second year I played. That's at Gregory Heights. My mom's in the white in the back. And the way it happened, Frank, was that the Cassinis, who lived up the street, started walking toward Gregory Heights. They picked up the Beesons. They picked up the Requas. They knocked on my door and said, "Hey, you want to go play soccer?" And I can pretty much remember running into the playroom saying, "Hey, can I go play soccer?" And I played for a guy named Hans Klein, who was our coach that year. This is I'm going to call it historic photo, only because I have talked about it so many doggone times. But this was 1967, and we beat Brian Schmetzer's team in the West Seattle tournament. This picture's been used a ton. Here's the cool thing about our game. The guys in the background, that's Mr. Schmetzer, Brian's father, passed away last year. That's GJ, Misha, Jimmy Kirk, and I think Brian's in that photo. I saw all of those guys last year at the post-game party after Brian's Seattle Sounders won the MLS Cup. To me, that's amazing. So I'm back row, second from the left. The guy next to me, the guy in the corner, that's Peter Klein, and then John Klein, Hans's twin sons. John is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in. We all played for the University of Washington together. We played high school soccer. Their little brother was on the team, and he's in the front row in the middle with a trophy resting on his knee. And then a little history, the guy that's James Klein, the guy on his left, that's Chris DeGarmo, lead guitarist for Queensryche. So he made the most money playing soccer. by leaving soccer. He was great.
So that's the first team in Burien, or the first team that you played on. This is the Burien area, right?
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. And it was, soccer kind of developed in pockets around the state. And we just happened to be lucky that, and Hans was he was born in Holland, lived in Germany. And he was a fantastic coach. And I was there the day he passed in the hospital, and I thanked him for what he did for us. But that area of Burien, the Highline Eagles was a pretty good team. We didn't ever win the state championship. We lost the final 3 times, lost to Brian Schmetzer's team. But there's Hans in the middle. He was a Boeing engineer. He's a genius. He was a very, very bright man. And he was really kind. He really cared about us and took good care of us. And he took copious game notes. I think I still have them, who scored, who got assists. And then John and Peter are still in that photo. Peter's on the front row on the left. And John, I'm 2 in on the front row from the left, 3 over, sorry. And then John is next to the goalkeeper to his right. The fun thing is a bunch of those guys, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of us played Little League Baseball together too. And we were 2 games from Williamsport. And I remember, I made an error in front of 10,000 people at San Bernardino. It's terrible. When we got off the plane, it was 1 districts, Little League All-Stars 1975, and 1 districts, then we won the state, and then we won a couple games in the regional San Bernardino. And we get off the plane, and Hans Klein takes our gloves and hands us our uniforms, and I think we had a game the next day. True story. Yeah.
His disappointment was his excitement for there's always another game. All right.
That's right. Yeah.
So it was a neighborhood team. It wasn't and it stayed a neighborhood team up through that time there.
It did. Yeah. Maybe until our junior, senior year, we were pretty much all Highline High School, Kennedy High School kids for the most, a couple of Mountaineers. But then as we got to, I think, junior and senior year, we started to have tryouts and that kind of thing. So, but honestly, we went off and I played at a community college for 1 year and then went to Washington, and we go off and play at Washington. Then we come back and play for Mr. Klein, with a bunch of those guys. I mean, it was just, it was old school. And that's how it was back then. I mean, like the Sporthouse Schnetzer was the same thing with the Lake City Hawks.
High school soccer was really just getting started, and in your day, I think it only became varsity in at least the second half, or maybe your senior year. But high school soccer back then was much more visible. So talk about what it meant to play for your high school team back then, and getting it varsity status, and what you guys were able to accomplish.
Yeah, so you are correct. We did not have a varsity team until our senior year. And John, Peter Klein, James Klein, Rich Stadler, a bunch of us who played on our youth team transferred over to the high school team. So we had done a petition, and it got torn up, ripped up. Nope, we're not having high school soccer. And then finally by the senior year, they made it okay and made it official. And it was great. And I think this about high school sports, because and we were good. We ended up winning the state championship, which is great fun. It's a big deal. There were probably 3,500 people at Memorial Stadium. There were scouts from the NASL that were there, New York Cosmos. At least that's what we were told. Cosmos, Sounders, Timbers. Who knows, right? Yeah, but to win it, and then we lost 1 game and tied 1 game, and it happened in the same week. We lost to Billy Crooks and Don Crow from Arena Sports. I'm going to make sure he sees this. He'll be so happy to get that in there because he uses that against me a lot. But they beat us 2-1 at Kent Meridian, and then we tied a freshman goalkeeper, Jeff Cook's Renton Indians 0-0, and they packed the box. But then we won every game before and after that, and so it was a big deal. So they walked the halls, and and Highline had not won a state championship for 33 years. So it was fun. It was really fun, and we loved it. And we weren't good. I mean, So, I mean, we were good. We were good. What we had, though, is what championship teams have. We all got along well. We all worked hard. We had good pieces. And we had John and Peter Klein. John Klein scored a ton of goals. We had this German exchange student, Guido Ingadai. I'm pretty sure that was his name. And then I worked hard, and yeah, we just had good pieces, But I vividly remember our history teacher, Mr. Duvall, was our coach, and he didn't know anything about soccer. And so we're at Memorial Stadium. We played in the semifinals against Chance Fry's Sammamish team, which we beat, by the way. No, we beat Bellevue in the semis, and we beat Chance's Sammamish team. And for the record, Chance needs to see this too. Chance was not at the game. He left the team to go play for the state team.
Yeah.
There you go, Chance. You can finally I'll admit that. So anyway, but John walked up to the chalkboard, grabbed the chalk, and he's like, no. And Mr. Duvall sat down, and John wrote up what we were going to do. So high school soccer was fun, and I feel bad that the kids don't have that chance.
Well, a lot of programs didn't get started because they didn't have a teacher or someone to supervise the program. I mean, that was the key, and the kids did know more than the coaches oftentimes in those situations. So I get that. So when you're graduating high school in the early 80s, and what are the options of playing? You mentioned you went to community college first, but we talk about what the paths are now. I mean, you can already be in the Sounders Academy and or maybe playing for the Defiants at that time. But what were your choices back then?
Yeah, SPU, Washington Community College. And I didn't have any interest from SPU or the community college. And I knew Cliff McGrath, the legendary coach, from going to his camps. But I had kind of an interesting thing in that our old high school coach, Al Rudriff, who was Bruce Rudriff's brother. This is at Highline Stadium, and that's playing just after high school for the FOE Eagles, Fraternal Order of whatever they were, the Eagles. It's a fun team, and again, Mr. Klein was part coach on that. But Al Rudriff was our high school assistant coach. He got the job at Green River Community College, and he just said, "Hey, I'll give you a full ride." And so I went, "Okay, I'm going to Green River." So the process was not much. But what happened was I have 2 discs in my neck that are fused together from birth. I went up for a ball, and I landed funny, and it snapped my neck. The field was frozen, snow on the field. It was 30 degrees, cold and all that. I was pretty rigid, but I snapped my neck, and so I had to wear a brace from my chest to my chin for a year. And I was told I'll never play again. All those things. Scary time for a kid, and all of a sudden I got better because I got my head up. I trained with that brace on for quite a while, but and then I had never made the state team as a young man growing up. Never, from 12 to whatever, 18, 19. But then I finally made it, the U23 team, and I got a few goals for that team. And then all of a sudden it was dominated by SPU players and Washington players. And so they all said, "Hey, you got to come." And so I met with Cliff a couple times. We had lunch together. It's so funny, on like a 14-seat table, and I sat at one end and he sat at the other. And because Cliff had a great personality, right? So I met with him a few times, and then Danny Buck was UW coach, and the players from Washington and SPU were really recruiting hard, and they just said, Denny called and said, "I'll give you a full ride, a full tuition scholarship." So I'd pay for room and board, but that's how it came about. But yeah, back then, few guys were leaving the state. I remember Jason Wader, a little bit younger, but going off to Duke. A few guys went down to San Diego, the Hendersons. Pat Henderson's more my age. Chris and Sean later went to UCLA, but Washington, had produced a lot of really talented players back then, but there was just no visibility to go out of state, really. So, and Cliff did a great job recruiting, and that kind of pulled the UW along as well. So,
okay.
Yeah.
So we're going to discuss rivalries at different levels today, but so in college in the early 80s, the landscape for local colleges, you've kind of spoken to it. There was just, you didn't mention the school you're coaching at in that discussion. So you did mention that not very many went out of state. What did they have to offer? You said you got a tuition waiver or scholarship, but what what would they entice a player with in the 80s and early 90s?
Well, honestly, not much. I mean, we played at Husky Stadium, right? What's that whole 70,000 now? And back then it's probably 65,000. And the turf, when the field ended, there was a little concrete lip, so you played on AstroTurf, which would rip your skin apart because it was painted. And the end zones, Huskies, it's, Washington at one end, Huskies on the other. That wasn't colored turf. That was painted turf. And so if you slid on dry paint, which we did often, and we wore the small shorts back then. So it wasn't necessarily playing conditions. Cliff really said, we fashioned our program. So glad to say this. We fashioned our program after SPU soccer. Great travel, fun schedule, competitive schedule, and good gear. We've been Nike forever, and we're Adidas now. But I looked. So there wasn't a lot. Cliff had a lot more flamboyance to the SPU program. You were a part of that, Frank. You know all about that. You helped do it. You helped create that ambiance and that aura about that program. Cliff, I hope somebody talks about the fact that they drove in 6 Cadillacs and players drove the Cadillacs.
Not Cadillacs, it's Lincoln Town cars. Come on. Guess you didn't get a ride in one, huh?
I never did. No, I did not. So, and then playing for the Huskies was a big honor. I mean, I tell Jamie Clark that all the time. I'm thrilled that I got to play at Washington. So there wasn't the incentives of, hey, we're gonna play a great schedule. We're gonna, we've got this grass field that you see behind me here, covered seating, trip to Europe every 4 years, great gear. All that stuff was not really on the table back then. And SPU or Seattle U, I'm very, very lucky I got the job, but it wasn't a high priority at Seattle U's campus when I was coming out. So didn't even think of it. It's too bad.
And I think at the time, Gonzaga might have been NAIA or just a shell of the program it is now. And I'm trying.
Yeah, back then in college, everybody just played each other, right? You remember? And I mean, you were part of, you're the historian, right? But I think it's awesome that we had promotion relegation, and we had Division I teams, Division II teams, NAIA teams, and those UPS back then, PLU or NAIA. And if you won what was it, Frank, the Cascade, you got promoted to the Olympic.
To the Olympic, yeah.
Yeah. And so, no, you didn't really. I mean, we were Seattle U was Division I up until 1980, and then went NAI. And the guys who played at Seattle U 67 to 80, they were an official Division I program, playing against PLU, Willamette, Whitworth, Washington, Oregon State, Portland. So.
And my apologies to our producer, Leanne, right now. I skipped a question, but I was going back when I was in your teenage years. So graduating high school, you started a business, and it was soccer camps. And as I mentioned in the introduction, you still are operating soccer camps. So what moved you to start that?
Well, I got to give Al Rudriff the credit on that. He was our assistant coach. He came to my house because he was from St. Louis, which was a soccer hotbed. And he said, hey, we're going to start a soccer camp. And he was 25. I was just graduated, 18 years old. And so I said, okay. And look at that. That's Johnny Hamill. Johnny Hamill is one of the finest human beings on the planet. No question. School teacher. He's got 3 kids. He and Anna Maria. He's got a grandson now, Vinny. But Johnny and I have been working together probably 35 of this will be our 40th year. And Johnny's probably one of his 37 of those. We met on his recruiting visit to the University of Washington. And we love the opportunity to impact young lives. And that's at Green Lake. Then we have an overnight camp, which is just a lot of fun. These are terrific young people. Some of them come to camp when they're 9 years old. And that's an overnight camp. That place, Camp Waskowitz, is absolutely sacred ground. I'm not kidding you. It's an outdoor education camp during the school year for the Highline School District, but in the summertime, we're up there for 20, 25 days doing 6 or 7 camps and bonfires, s'mores, 7.5 hours of playing. And I feel incredibly blessed that I have friends that are 5 years old to 17. And then I get to go and move into the college coaching game, and that's fun. And I just was texting Andy Rose, who's playing for the Whitecaps. This is our field. My lovely wife, Patty, and I built a soccer field. That's a half a mile from camp. We have a bus now. Patty has a bus driver's license. I pretty much ruined her life. She was a top mortgage producer when I met her. Now she has to drive the camp bus.
Oh, I thought she was an elk herder. I didn't know. I wasn't.
Yeah, this is the
It looks
pregame
like
warm-up
one
for,
team is not wearing pennies.
yeah, FC Venison versus FC Bull Elk. Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, that we lived there for 2 years while we were developing everything, and that was not uncommon to see. Right there and there, I counted them once. There's 38 there, but one time I was doing an interview with the Seattle Times, and they were coming. It's on the river, and they were coming up from the river 54, and they were walking 20 feet from me. And I just was, whatever reporter I was talking to, I was saying 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then they just come and they would bed down. We were part of their feeding circuit. And they were, I was thinking, one got stuck in a goal net at Christmas time. And I am not exaggerating. Yeah, true story. And I am not exaggerating. I went in and said, oh, let me go grab some scissors. And I'm walking, and I'm about on the 20-yard line. And I'm thinking, what am I doing? So I go back, I call the game warden. They come out, they shoot him with a tranquilizer, yeah, to knock him out. His antlers are all stuck in it. And he's paralyzed. They put a blanket over his eyes. We cut him out, and this all was on television. This ended up making the news. We had to wait 45 minutes for Channel 7 to show up. And the guy kept apologizing, but his boss said this is a good news story. It was Christmas time. Chuck Nelson, the legendary kicker, texted me and said, is that your field? And I said, yeah. And he goes, did they ask you to go on the air? And I said, yes. And he said, good for you for not doing it. I didn't want to go on the air. Yeah, I'm PETA coming to our camp. So camps are awesome. I mean, the older I get, I'm 57 now, and our kids are 30, Ian's 30, Nate's 28, Gabrielle's 25, and they've grown up with camp. And I walk our neighborhood in Ballard, and I see children that I know. And I have, honestly, Frank, you've got a great heart. I know that. And I've turned into my mother. You know, I'm sitting there talking to a 6-year-old about whatever. I'm just thinking, it's a pretty blessed experience. Drives me crazy because it's nonstop. You know, there'll be a day I'll be, doing something for Seattle U, Division I college soccer is busy. Then I'll be flying to a San Jose Earthquakes game, and I'll be leaving camp in a suit because I'm only going to be there 20 hours. And then I come back and I'm wearing this shirt, and I've still got the suit on, and just take a extra t-shirt and shorts to sleep in, and toothbrush, and so it's a hectic summer, but it's quite an honor. The older I get, my mother loved camp, and she used to come to camp all the time. My mom and dad used to come. Last day I saw my dad alive was at camp, and he would smoke. He was English. He used to smoke at camp. So, yeah, and I owe Cliff on that too, Cliff McCrath, because he started Northwest Soccer Camp, and I went as a kid. I went to Camp Waskowitz as a camper and a counselor. And when Al Ridger said we're going to do camps, I thought, yeah, we'll do them. I had some experience. What happened, though, the next year he left. Bruce Woodruff was either cut from the Sounders or traded or whatever, and so Al left with him, and he just came over, and he literally had a box this big, and he just said, here you go. If you want to keep doing the camps, you'll do them. And I looked, and my mother looked over her glasses and said, oh, you'll still run the camp. And I'm like, yes, Mom. So 40 years later, start on Monday.
All right. Yeah. Sounds like it's close to your soul. So now getting back to where I digressed. Okay, now we talked about the opportunities coming out of high school. Now it's the opportunities after college, and the Sounders are gone. The Stars are going, but it's a smaller team. I mean, there's not as many players. There's not as many teams, period. But Tell me what the considerations were for you around here, you and your buddies.
Yeah, thank God for Bud Greer, because when the Sounders folded, and there was rumors he was going to buy the Sounders and try to keep them going, but he saw it was a sinking ship, so he didn't, and he started FC Seattle. And that was a game changer for me. That's the schedule that we were going to play. We did play Dundee. So I have a paycheck framed somewhere that is for $500. You're supposed to get $500 a game, but fans were there weren't a lot of fans. I'd say 1,000, 2,000, 3,000. I think a couple times we had 5 or 6, but anyway, I have a check that says on the memo part, it's $250 for Dundee and Santos. And Santos was Pele's old team. And Brian Schmetzer got 2 goals in that game. We were down 1-0. Jeff Durgan, the U.S. national team captain, was on the team, and he 2-footed Junior, and they kind of said, hey, we didn't come here for this. So Schmetz got 2 goals, which was great. And then in that last picture, I'm playing against Manchester City. So we got to play some great teams here. That's Mike Sweeney for Canada. We played against Canada quite a bit. That's at Memorial Stadium. You parked inside the stadium. The stadium holds 11,000, but good parking close to the field.
12,000 people, not cars, right?
Yes, correct. This is one of my favorites, and I realized it not too long ago. This is the first time my lovely wife, Patty, ever saw me playing a game. Johnny Hamill is on the right. I got my arm around Johnny. Craig Beeson, the Husky, all-time leading goal scorer, and police officer Tad Willoughby is there. And I think that's Sean Connor's shoulder. But I took Patty to a game, and it was about our 4th date, and we had to win that game 3-0. We could not let San Jose score. You got 6 points for a win, 3 points for a goal. Well, 1 point for each goal, up to 3. We had to get 9 points to get into the playoffs. And Frank, I was solid, but I got a goal and an assist in that game. And Tony Ventrella interviewed me after the field, on the field with the cameras, and then we went to the Edgewater Inn, which we did after all the games that year. We went to different places for post-game parties, and somebody bought me a beer and said, "Here, you're my favorite player." And the good Lord could not have scripted Patty seeing me play any better. Goal, assist, TV, free beer. Married, amen, 31 years right there.
Oh yeah, and this happens all
That was a closer.
We've done stories for Sounder at Heart in my blog on what Bud did. It was more than just this league. He took you. I can't remember if you made both trips, but he took that team abroad.
Yeah, unbelievable. We went. I broke my ankle. I was a youth minister, and I dunked a basketball and I landed on a kid's foot, so I broke my ankle just before the second trip. But the first trip, Bud spent, in today's dollars, I don't know what it is, but $60,000 for us to go. And we played Bournemouth, Middlesbrough, Portsmouth, Queen's Park Rangers, and Dundee United in Scotland. Awesome games. And the Middlesbrough game, Bruce Rioch, who had coached us like the year before or 2 years before, he was the Middlesbrough coach, brought them out of bankruptcy. And we had, 20,000 people at the game. Brent Goulet scored a world-class goal about 15 minutes to go. I think it was 12 minutes to go in the game. Left footer from about 35 yards out, and that lit a fire. Bruce was not happy, so we lost 2-1. But it was so much fun to play. I mean, it was just playing at Queen's Park Rangers. I remember Dave Gillett walking in. I know you did an interview with Dave, and one of my heroes, and he walks into the locker room, and he's got this. He says, "Hey boys, he had a pint of beer. He said, I got my beer, I got my smokes, I got my coffee. I'm going to the press box. Don't blank up my night." He might have used a very colorful term, but I remember just looking at him in the doorway going, he's got his coffee, he's got his cigarettes, he's got his beer. Our job, we tied 2-2. Johnny Hamill got a goal. Scott Benedetti scored, I think. So
Hmm.
Yeah. So that was such a, I mean, honestly, I'm not kidding you. I got a text this morning from Rick Blubaugh, and Rick's in LA now. And on that text was Jeff Wall, Johnny Hamill, Jeff Cook. We were all on that trip together. Stocksy, Jeff Stock brought his lovely wife, and he was such a great guy to play with. But yeah, I owe Bud a ton. I mean, and so what happened for me was finished. I didn't play my last year because I signed the big pro contract. And I played 6 years. We got paid $250 a game the first year. It was going to be 500. That went 250. But we had Jeff Durkin on the team, New York Cosmos, Stadium High School. We had Stocksy on the team. Brian Schmetzer signed with us, and he had all these championships for the San Diego Sockers. I was so excited to finally be a teammate of his. I had admired him for so long, and Andy and Walter were his little twin brothers that were in high school. Mark Schur was super funny. He'd make Andy and Walter read what they were serving in the high school cafeteria. And they would literally bring, today's lunch spaghetti. We just had a great time. Robbie Zipp was on the team, was a good pro. And we had Bruce Rioch and Jimmy Gabriel as coaches. And then it was spun into Jimmy, and then Tommy Jenkins, and then Stuart Lee the last year. But we did not get paid year 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then the last year we got paid. I think I made $371 a month. I think I literally think that was the number. Clive Charles, who is a legend, no question, unfortunately passed away when he was 51 in the early 2000s. He looked at me on my contract negotiation and said, you got your camps? And I said, yeah. You got Seattle U. Your wife's got a good job. You have a house in Seattle. Sign this contract or retire. You can't go anywhere. So, and then he brought 5 University of Portland players, that he had built their iconic program around: Wade Weber and Jason Russ and Jimmy Weber and Rob Sakamoto. And they came up and they got 5 times what I got paid. And I've been with the team 6 years. But unfortunately, the team folded after that. And I tried to get on with the San Jose Earthquakes. But so I played 3 years, and then I started coaching at Seattle U. My last 3 years of playing for FC Seattle were my first 3 years of coaching. But there was that picture of Man City. Well, we just had a recruit in from England, and the dad knew that player and knew that team. And, here I'm saying, I got player of the game against Man City. Well, they were 4th division at the time. Let's just keep that between us. So, yeah. But we got to play against, Santos, Dundee, Middlesbrough, Portsmouth. So really, I owe Bud. He did a very generous thing for us. Kept the game going.
He did. So you just mentioned how you were playing at the same time you'd taken the Seattle U job. Tell us about what you inherited there, what the history of the program had been at that point, and then where you found it, and how you what you used to incentivize improvement for that program.
Yeah. Well, I inherited a team that had 8 losing seasons in a row. Did not have any benches for the players to sit on. There were no stands for the fans, no scoreboard. The goals were those 4-inch steel goals that they put down in play. They pulled them out on a tractor, about 2,000 pounds each. They sat in place the entire season. The men and women's team both trained on the field at the same time. We had one side, they had the other. It became Crater Lake by the end of the season because the goal mouth would get torn up. So we took over a program. My first season, I was 24. My first season was the 9th losing season in a row. But I just looked at what Cliff did. I looked at what Colleen Hacker did with PLU women's soccer. I looked at what Keith Watts did at Simon Fraser, and I just said, we can do it. And I love this picture because a bunch of these guys just went into the Hall of Fame at Seattle U. The back row left side is Hugh McCardle, Scotsman. I'm friends with, when they all went in on this thing, I looked at it one day, and I think I have cell phone numbers for about 15 of these guys. The Robinson brothers are in there. Ido Vanni is in there. Dave Pellegrini's on the lower left. Timmy Allen was drafted by the Sounders, I think, in 73. He's front row, second in from the right. Joe Zavalia with the big mustache, the second from, maybe third from the right sorry, Timmy is a second from the left. But the Robinson brothers and the guy that's got in the back, that's got sort of the scarf around his neck in the white shirt, that's Tim Colbert. He comes to all our pregame meals and helps serve the team. And so these guys are now early 70s. Steve Banchero is in the picture. His family owned Rabanco, the garbage company, and he drove a garbage truck to that game because that's the only way you could get there. So we're playing, in my opinion, we play for these guys. We play for the guys who helped start the program and anybody who wore the jersey. So I'm a Catholic guy, and Frank, I owe Seattle Pacific in a lot of ways. This is one of my favorites. This is Abdul Aziz Al Thinaman, and he has royalty in his blood. He's from Saudi Arabia. I have his U16 Saudi Arabia national team jersey in my office. Aziz was 3 years older than me. I didn't know it, and he wouldn't tell me. But he came to this country, and he's like a Kennedy. The Al Thinaman family is royalty over there. And you see that Magic Johnson smile. And we just, and he ended up marrying a blonde-haired, blue-eyed woman from, I don't know where Barbara was from, but she was a Seattle U student. And he would come in, and I'd have to explain about American women because Barbara's a great person, and he loved her, but he couldn't understand their values back then in the late 80s in Saudi Arabia were different than they are now. So, SPU beat Seattle Pacific in 1987, 15-0. Jeff Cook was in goal for the Huskies in the next game, and the Huskies beat Seattle U 8-0. I called Cooker and I said, Jeff ended up being our longtime assistant, 23 years. I said, how come you only beat him 8-0? SPU beat him 15. He said, we didn't play one single starter. So I just called Nancy Giroux, who was the AD, and I said, I'd like to meet with you. I put a suit on and nervous, and I went in and said, I want to win a national championship here at Seattle U. I know we can do it. Because I saw Cliff, Colleen, Keith Watts, and I said, man, it can happen. So, and again, I said, okay, we're going to travel. We're going to get good gear. Back then, each player for SPU, I think, would pay like $400, and they'd get $1,200 worth of Adidas or Diadora gear. We did the same thing. We get $160, and I had a contract with Nike when I played, and I'm still I've just signed a 5-year deal. I'm so honored. They've helped us. I'll be 35 years with Nike now, and they helped build our program. I remember I was so excited. It was buy 4 get 1 free, and then we did a little better. Buy 3 get 1 free, then buy 2. And then we won Nike's first national championship in 1997, and they've just been great. Joe Elsmore is the head of Nike Soccer, and SBU alum Todd Haley's down there now as a VP of IT for Nike. But Patrick Gibbs, they've just been great to us. So that helped build the program. But we wore some. I remember Chance and I were playing in LA, and we had these shoes that, when you tighten them down, there was this little plastic piece and it cut into your foot. We were playing, it's 102 degrees. We come out, we're wearing white socks, and both our feet are bleeding. But we were both getting $500 in gear. So we're sitting in the locker room looking at our feet, they're cut, and we're like, dude, we get $500 in Nike. We're Nike athletes. So again, the blueprint, and I imagine most people have watched the Jordan series. It took him 7 years to get the Bulls to that. It took us 10 years to win the first national championship. It took us 10 years to beat Cliff McGrath. And so the rivalries, first it was because we were NAIA, it was going to be getting past Simon Fraser. And we beat him early in like 1989, 1-0. Just one of those days for us. And then we beat them in 1997, which was the year we won the national championship. We beat them twice that year, which was great. But I always felt like, hey, the template had been perfectly laid out. I was recruited by Cliff. I knew a lot of his players and knew what they were like and played with a bunch of them. And so I just said, well, we can do it. And Seattle U has been great to me. And that field you're looking at, championship field, it was U.S. News and World Report said it was one of the top 4 venues in the country to watch a college soccer game. But it first started out as just a grass field with some seating for 150. Now you see the stands there. Now we have lights. It's an awesome place. We've had Boca Juniors. We've had many MLS teams. We've had the women's national team a couple times. One time when Mia Hamm and her great group, Julie Foudy and Michelle Akers, they're all in the field training. Brandy Chastain and Brian Schmetzer and I were standing there, and a long time ago, this before the MLS days, and Brian just said, wow, these women are superstars, right? And so now, you know, bus pulls in, Klinsmann gets off the bus, Clint Dempsey, Timmy Howard, you know, I love it. We had Dortmund just trained in about a 10-day period, no, about a 15-day period. We had Dortmund, Boca Juniors, and Atlanta FC all on our field training. So MLS teams train there. It's close, you know, they can come to Seattle, stay downtown, come to our field and go back. So it's been fun, you know, and first rivalry, we had to get past Simon Fraser. They had 3 national titles. We did it. We won it. Went Division III for 2 years, played in that Northwest Conference, great conference, fun. And then we went Division II and we had to beat our pal Uncle Nubby. And so we finally turned that corner and got on a good run against him. And then he was on the sidelines. He was working he was the site rep for the NCAA tournament game when we won in the quarterfinals. 2 Seattle Icon kids getting the assist and goal. Bob McAllister plays it to Alex Chersky, Tony Chersky's son, and hits the diving header with 3 seconds to go to send us to the Final Four. And that team was undefeated. And that team had Tommy Jenkins' kid, Stevie. It had Alex Chersky, Tony's son, Bobby McAllister, Jimmy's son, and Jeff Stock Jr. So Jeff Stock Senior's son. So it's been fun, and now we're Division I. Now
we've got some of those photos that correspond. That's Q11, Leanne. So I just wanted to make sure. I know you said that Billy Colello was like your landmark recruit, your milestone recruit that kind of helped build the base for what you said. That's the '97 team. Your win over Thanksgiving in Alabama.
You know what was great about that is we played on a Tuesday night against Birmingham Southern. They had, and in the NAIA, there's much less rules and there's no age restriction at that time. You're playing against a 30-year-old guy who's a pro, but you can't track it, right? So pro in England or Europe or whatever. I got in an elevator with a guy he had 2 kids and he had been with Bolton, I think. And I said, oh, how long have you been coaching at Lindsey Wilson? He says, coaching? I'm playing. He had 2 young kids with him. I'm like, you know, so the NAIA, to win in the NAIA, and that was a pretty Seattle-based starting 11. We had one guy from Montana, Shane McCorvey, got hurt, but it was pretty much Seattle-based. Frank Barton's kids on there. We played on a Tuesday night, a Wednesday night. Thursday was Thanksgiving. Friday, we were the second semifinal, and we won in overtime, and then 19 hours later won the final. And that's just great. It's my father. I love that. That's a great picture. My father Sullivan, president of Seattle U, he said, go take a photo with your dad right now. And he just kind of grabbed the trophy, said, get it now. And it was so grateful he said that. And the beauty on that, Frank, I told you this before, that's a $400 Nike golf sweatsuit. My dad smoked like a chimney. And he would literally, you know, take a puff off his cigarette, and I swear to you, he blew it right into that. When I got that thing back, not pretty. That's the 2004 team that won the national title. And that team went undefeated, was number 1 in the country, I think, the entire season. That's a lot of pressure to play under. But that's a great group of guys. I mean, those national championship teams have doctors, dentists, and lawyers and engineers. Our guys have done incredibly well academically. It's very cool to see where the guys are. You know them from 18 to 22, and then they go off and, you know, become great fathers and husbands and community guys. And you know, John McDowell runs CYO soccer for Magnolia. Ryan Sawyer runs it for Emerald City's the president, and he has his own investment firm. These are volunteer positions, you know. And McDowell's a partner in a law firm, but they have been given back tons of them. Danny McKay, they've been given back for years. So feel very lucky to, like I do with the camps. You know, I get a pretty unique situation being with these college guys.
So 2 questions ago, Pete. So listen up here. So there was a time where you took a break from college coaching, and you were named coach of the Kitsap Pumas, a PDL team in Bremerton at the time. How did your approach to coaching change in that environment, and how did that experience factor into how you approached the teams when you returned to Seattle U?
Yeah. Well, like Bud Greer, I owe Robin Waite because he was the owner of the Pumas. I went over there, rode the Bremerton ferry over, and I didn't know I was going for an interview. Ben Pecora had set it up, and Ben was the GM of the team. And I get in there, and I'm like, wow, they've got an office. They've got this great logo. They've got an ice field that looks similar to what Seattle U has at Bremerton Memorial High School Stadium, intimate. And by the end of it, I'm saying, hey, I'd like to coach this team. And that's the national championship. I coached there 2 years, and it was a great eclectic group, kind of like our high school. Any championship team we had key players on that team. David Gray is holding the Scottish flag, and yeah, it was just a lot of fun. We had pretty good crowds. That game was televised. And so I learned, and then we got to play that's Ziggy, obviously, Schmidt, and that's playing the Sounders in the round of 16 in the U.S. Open Cup. It was awesome. Place was packed, and Brian Schmetzer, I'm talking to Roger Levesque, and I'm broadcasting. And on that, I didn't come to any practice for the Sounders for like 2 weeks because I didn't want to blend, and it didn't seem appropriate to show up. So, but I did say, Ziggy's budget's like 3.6 million and mine's 36,000. I don't think Zig liked that comment, but he gave me some grief about it later. But I'm in the center circle with Roger Levesque in the warm-up. We're just getting started in the warm-up. And I hear Brian Schmetzer screaming at Roger. And he had coached Roger in the USL days, and assistant for the Sounders. And he's doing his march. He's coming after Roger. And then he screams again, and Roger doesn't hear him. And I keep talking with Roger and keep him entertained. And finally he gets close and he screams at Roger, "Roger, come warm up, get on the other side." Brian is in my face, pointing at me. "I know what you're doing. Stay away from our guys." I'm like, "No, Roger's a good friend of mine." So Mike Facito got 2 goals. We were down 1-0 at halftime. We got into the game, and typical of any, soccer match, lesser teams we changed our lineup a little bit. We went with a 4-5-1 and sat someone high up on Taylor Graham, and we hoped we could weather. Ozzie played in that game because he had missed a couple games with a suspension, I think. So they had a pretty good team on the field. Terry Boss was in goal, and then they went up 2-0. Mike's second goal, second half, and then we made it 2-1 on a Nick Bazanio goal, and then we hit side netting twice. And I thought we were going to go to penalty kicks, and that would have been awesome, only because Brian Meredith was our goalie, and he had been drafted by the Sounders and played and loaned to us. And I was ready to say, "Hey, didn't they bring you all the way out here, and now you got to play in Bremerton? What a great opportunity to." And Brian would have been great. He saved 2 penalty kicks that season, one against the Timbers and in the play-in game in the U.S. Open Cup, and one in the semifinal of the quarterfinal of the PDL National Championship. So, yeah, it was fun. I owe him. We played on a great grass field. I kind of got the perfect window. We paid our guys $1,000 a month plus $100 a month for bonuses for winning if we won. Yeah, it was great. And it was fun playing against Ziggy that day because, that was a special day. I was nervous.
So when you come back to Seattle U, it's a Division I program. You've used, as you mentioned, rivalries to kind of set the next challenge or set goals for your teams. But and I imagine you used Washington to get the goal was to gain an equal footing with them, and now you're in the NCAA tournament and the top team in the WAC more often than not. So as we wrap up here, tell me what it's like to both chase rivals so that you can move up the ladder, and now what it's like to have a target on your back.
Yeah, thanks. And I love that picture. Jamie and I get along great, and it's become somewhat known around the country that Notre Dame, Indiana have a very good working relationship that goes back to the Bobby Clark, Jamie's father, and Jerry Yeagley days where they just said, hey, let's help each other out. Yeah, Washington, we're 3-3 in the last 6, I think that's the record, and we're 1-1 in postseason. And years ago when I got the job, Jamie and I sat down and got coffee. He's been great to our program, and I think Craig Weibel, who left to go to Real Salt Lake, said I was their best promoter, because I tell people he's great and they do a great job. Patty and I support him financially, but when it comes kickoff, then we gotta battle, and he knows it and I know it. And I like this picture. This is UCLA at Seattle U. That's a pretty historic game. We had them in the second round at home, beat them 1-0, and Hamza Haddadi scored, and that goes back to the D2 days of that. My brother Simon took that photo, and CBS followed us around for a couple of days. But the rivalry is great, and we want to win the national championship in Division I. You know, that team could have, if they played Division I, that had the elements, and so did the '97 team that could have won it. So Jamie's trying to do the same thing. They went to the round of 8. We went to the round of 32, second round, this past year, and it's fun. And we are, in the WAC, I think we won it 4 times now in the last 7 years. And everybody gets up to play in Seattle U. We're top 20 program, which I love telling people that. We ranked 19 in the coaches poll, and we were ranked 16 at both the end of the year polls for, College Soccer News, I think it was, for 16. But I love our facility. Our school is great to recruit to. Our city is great to recruit to. And I think Jamie and I play off each other. He gets his guys. We get our guys. We both recruit similar players. And I had a young man on campus, and he said, well, I'm looking at Seattle U. I'm looking at Washington, Oregon State, Portland. And I said, well, Terry Voss is great down at Oregon State, and Jamie's great at the UW. And so Gary Wright, your pal and mine, from the press box is named for at CenturyLink. He just said, in the NFL, it's competitors on the field, teammates in the boardroom. And Jamie and I have used that philosophy as well. So, it's college soccer. We're not doing brain surgery. We've got to develop young men, but we should do it the right way. And I think he was raised by Scottish parents. I was raised by English parents. There's a lot of values there, but we got to kill them, and they got to kill us. And he knows it, and I know. So once the game starts, I remember there was a picture just now you showed of Kyle Bjornathan when we were playing him in the first NCAA tournament game. And this was awesome, Frank. I mean, we're playing. They close the gates. There's 3,500 people in, and they close the gate, and they leave 500 people outside, and they go and they're in the trees that are between the lake and the field. They're on the grandstands for the track trying to watch the game. And we go down 4-0. We beat Creighton. It's first year we're in the NCAA tournament. That season we started 0-6-1. We get going. We end up 11-9-4, but we beat Creighton, who's been to 2 Final Fours in a row. We beat them at Creighton. We come back on the Sunday. Pretty hectic, right? We go down 1-0 halftime, and then bang, 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 3-0. We get 2 goals in 27 seconds, 4-2. Ryan Herman's their goal. He picks it up, puts it down, picks it up again. It should have been an indirect free kick from 12 yards out, and we had scored 8 goals on free kicks. So, but anyway, I mean, that was such a great night for Seattle soccer, college soccer, and ever since then, those games have been very, very well attended and a lot of fun.
Well, you've created you've certainly been value added to our soccer community over the years, Pete, and I want to thank you for those contributions far and wide. Thank you for your time today, and thanks for building more than just championships, but young men of character, and probably young women through your camps. So thank you. I'd also be remiss if I don't thank our producer, Leanne Johnson. And thanks to all of you for watching our Conversation with a Legend series. For more on the history of Washington State soccer and to learn more about Washington State Legends in Soccer, go to wasoccerlegends.org. We appreciate your support, and we'll see you next time. Thank you, Pete.
Thanks a lot, Frank. Thank you, Leanne. I really appreciate it. Thank you. Fun.